let's go ahead and open Packet Tracer up on your computer. And this is your guys' opportunity to ask questions as well about how do we connect things up. And let me go ahead and let me test the waters here and see. And let me make this a little bit larger so that it, whoa, we can see what's going on. All right, so here I've got a router, right? So go ahead and drag out a 2911 router. If you click on the first little blue tab down here, it says Network Devices. It'll show you a whole bunch of routers, and we're going to choose a 2911. And you'll notice when I hover over it, whoops, there we go. When I hover over it, it's going to show you that it has 3 ports, 3 gigabit Ethernet ports. And of course, they're all down. It's not connected to anything. Shows me the MAC addresses. Let me ask you this. How would I add additional interfaces into this device? Does anybody know?
Wouldn't you right-click it?
All right, let's do a right-click. All right, so right-click doesn't do anything.
Are you talking about like adding another router?
No, how would I add interfaces? You can see we got 3 interfaces here. How would I add some more interfaces onto this router?
Isn't that in a command prompt or?
So it's not in the command prompt to add the interfaces.
So just click on it and go to the physical tab.
Yep.
Yep, that's what I bet. Yep.
All right, so I click on it, go to the physical tab, and then here are a list of the different modules that you can add in, right? So we're going to look at a couple of these. So the first one we're going to look at is this HWIC, and you'll see for the last generation of Cisco routers, they call them HWIC cards, which is hardware interface or high-speed WAN interface card is what HWIC stands for. And so this is going to add a 1 gig interface.
You have to
you'll notice. I'm sorry, say that again.
You have to make sure you turn it off before you.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to drag it out here, and I'm going to try to add it. And it's going to tell me you can't add the module. You've got to turn the router off. And so it's always been really hard to kind of see, but it's this little button right here that if you click it and you click it down and you can see it kind of move down, the green light goes out, which is very small, but the router's now off. So I can drag and then add in a card, an interface card to the router. Now, this specific interface card, it uses an SFP, a small form factor pluggable is what SFP stands for. And that's like a little module that you would plug in. And that module is this guy right here down at the very bottom. So the card right there has an interface, but we need to add a little module to it. So go ahead, power your router down, add this module in, and then drag the little GLC LHSMD, just drag it, and then drop it in the little square. And then that'll add in a fiber connected interface, right? Or an interface.
Which router was it?
The 2911.
I'm sorry, are we supposed to be doing this too on our screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So you're going to want to drag a 2911 router out onto what would be the blank canvas here that you should start with. And I want to get you guys to kind of put these things together along with me.
I, for some reason, can't get Zoom to minimize the. Oh, there we go. Okay.
You got it?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So again, you just click on the first little network devices box down here. Click on the first image that shows some routers and some switches. And then just click on a 29, click and hold, and then drag out a 2911 and drop it on the screen. And then you're just going to click on it. You're going to go to the physical tab. And remember, when we're adding the cards in, you want to turn the router off, which is that little button right here. You're going to click on the bottom. And actually, it looks like if you click anywhere, it's going to go on, cycle it on and off for you. So you click on it, green light goes out, it's going to turn it off. And then we're going to add some cards in. So the first card we added in was this HWIC 1 gigabit Ethernet SFP. And then we added in the little GLC, which is the little square, right? We plug it into the square there. It's like a little module optic. So now we could connect up fiber. right? We could do a fiber connection. So the next card we're going to do is the HWIC2T. Is anybody familiar with what these modules, what kind of connectivity these modules provide? Anybody? All right. So these would provide serial cable connectivity, right? So you can have a serial cable. So you could have a fiber cable that plugs into this port, which we're going to do. And you can have a serial cable, which plugs into that. Well, there's actually 2 ports on it. That's why it says 2T. So there's 2 little ports on the back here. All right. So let's go ahead and drag another HWIC2T and drop it there. And then we'll drag, oh, go ahead.
What type of cables did you say?
Serial cables.
Okay.
Yeah, they allow for serial connections, and we'll talk about those. You're going to see, we're going to connect these guys up here in a second.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just like getting my packet tracer to run. I couldn't remember what my password was.
Ah, gotcha. All right.
I got to the point where I turned it off, but I'm not. Which ones did you want us to add in?
Yep. So the first slot here on the left is going to be an HWIC 1 gig SFP, 1 GE SFP. Drop that in.
Okay.
Into the first slot. And we're also going to put that in the 4th slot over here as well.
Okay.
And then for that card that's in the 1st and the 4th slot, you're going to want to grab this the very last option here, the GLC LH SMD. And you can put that in the little square, and it needs this optic.
Okay.
It's at the very bottom there. And then the 2 cards in the middle are going to be the HWIC2T. So that would be the second option for the modules. And so then we filled up all of our module slots, as you can see. So is everybody with me right now? Making sure before we move on here.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're good to go? Yeah. And so if you're not, just let me know, and it's not a problem. We'll get it sorted out. Okay. So now that we've got everything plugged in terms of the modules, we're going to go ahead and click the little power button down here, and we're going to turn the router on, right? So now let's come over to the config tab. And depending on how quickly you click on the config tab, you might see this message here. It says device is still booting. Please wait, until finished. So I'm going to click OK. And then the device, when it says press return to get started, that means it's finished booting, right? So my Cisco router is now booted up, but we're going to change a couple things here. So in the router display, right? You see how it says router 0? Maybe we don't want that to be displayed as router 0. So we're just going to call this router 1, right? Router 1. And then for the host name, we're also going to change that to simply we're just going to say R1, capital R and then the number 1 for both display name and host name. And what we're going to do there is when we click over to the next tab, you're going to see that the display name out here on the canvas is going to change to router 1, or it should be changing to router 1. Or there we go. So if you close the window and then click the window back open, it's going to say router 1. So you see how that changed right there?
Yes.
All right, good deal. So here's what you're going to do now. Now, and this is kind of like the activity, right? So I just showed you, I kind of walked you through how do you get to the router and packet, how do you get to the routers and packet tracer? How do you get a new router out here onto the canvas? So now you are going to grab another 2911 and you're going to do the exact same thing we just did with router 1, except you're going to do it for router 2, meaning you're going to add in the 2 HWIC 2T cards in the center 2 slots. You're going to put the HWIC 1 gig SFP cards on the outside slots. And then you're going to put the little optic in the HWIC 1 gig E SFP cards. And you're going to name the router router 2. So go ahead and knock that out. And if you have any questions, let me know. And while you guys are doing yours, I will do mine. And again, this is the activity that we'll be turning in here in about 25 minutes. You're going to email it into me in about 25 minutes. Whoops. Okay, it went in there. All right, good. And don't forget to change the display name along with the host name. And this is going to be router 2. And just kind of give me a sense of when you're done, just kind of, let me know, hey, my router's set up. I'll get a feel for who's ready to go, who's not ready to go.
I'm
done.
good.
I'm done.
Anybody still working on this?
I can't remember how to put the name underneath of it. I know it's a setting that you can do.
Yeah. So remember, across the top here, you've got the physical things we can change.
I mean, not like putting the R2 or R1. I mean, like literally seeing it on the packet tracer. You see that on your screen?
Yeah. So just close down the window like that, and then it should show you the R2 and
No,
the R1.
it's not there.
Yeah, we see the like the other name, the display name, not the host name. That's what I'm seeing as well.
Yeah. So you're seeing R2, you're saying?
Oh, you wanted us to make it both R2. Okay.
So for this router on the right, you're going to make it the display name, and the host name is going to be R2.
Oh,
I thought you kept it as router 2 for the display name.
No,
and then
sorry
R2
about that.
for the
No,
okay.
yeah, we're going to change. So it'll be R1 over here on the left, and then R2 over here on the right.
Gotcha.
You got it. You got it.
What I'm saying is my only 2911 router is showing. Like it's not saying the name of the router. Like I changed it.
Yeah, have you closed this window down like that?
Yeah.
And then click on it, click on the router again, and it doesn't change?
Like it's not that it's not changed, but it won't like register it, I guess. Like it won't like I wish I could show you. It's not popping up with the name underneath of it. Like, is that important?
No, I mean, it's not going to stop you from completing the activity.
Okay.
So where you have, so real quickly though, where it says, Lee, where it says display name and host name, you have R2 and R2, correct?
Yeah, I think it was from last semester. I might have changed it, so it wouldn't show that for some reason. I can't completely recall how to change it back.
Okay. Yeah. So it should display the names underneath. I think the option, wait a second here. Where are we at? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So go to, are you on a Mac or Windows?
Mac.
Yeah. So go up to where it says Packet Tracer and then click on Preferences. And do you have showed on the left-hand side, about 4 down, it says show device name labels. Do you have that checked?
Nope. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Check on that. And then let me know if that sorts us out.
Yeah, I got it.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. No worries. No worries. All right. Good deal. So we should all have 2 routers, router 1 and router 2. So now, now what I want you to do is kind of mouse over one of the routers, and you should notice that you have significantly more devices or more interfaces than we did a minute ago. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So now you guys have basically got 2 routers out here on the canvas, and now we're going to connect these routers together, right? So let's come down here to the lightning bolt where it says connections, and let's click on the connections. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a fiber connection, which sometimes it's orange cable, but nowadays mostly you'll see kind of aqua colored cable. You can get it in all kinds of colors, but orange and aqua is usually what you're going to see. Okay, and I'm going to click on the orange cable that was here, right next to these dash lines. It's in between the dash lines. I'm going to click on it. You'll notice it changed my cursor, and it's probably impossible for you guys to see, but it's like a little cable connector. Well, the only ports that I can use a fiber connection on are those two SFP ports. So gig 030 or gig 000. So we're going to pick 030. And you see how it gives me kind of, and it looks more red to me.
I don't have 030 as an option.
What options do you have?
I have gig Ethernet 000. I have the 000.
Did you put in the little optic on the second card that you put in there maybe?
What do you mean?
So take a look at my screen here. So if you look at my
Yep.
screen, you can see on the back. So I have a card here, and actually let me get so you can see what I'm doing here. So there's a card here.
Yep.
And then you have a card here.
Yep.
And if you look real closely, do you see right there that there's an optic plugged in, like a little blue line across the top for both?
Nope, I didn't put it in both. I only put it in one. So that
And
makes sense.
There you go. So power the router down and then grab the GLC LHSMD, which is the optic. It's just the complicated way Cisco names that optic, and then just drag it over, drop it into that port, and then turn the router back on, and you're good to go.
Let me do that for both of them.
Yep. So is everybody still good to go? Or I should say, is anybody having any issues? Anybody not with me? All right. Okay, so down here in the connections area, we're going to grab the fiber connection. And again, all you do is click on it. You don't have to hold down. And then you click on the router, and you can see it gives you a choice of interfaces that you can plug in. Now, remember, we're using a fiber cable, so there's only two interfaces that are going to work for us here. It's going to be either 030 or 000, right?
Sorry to interrupt, but what color cable is it again?
It's orange. Well, it's the little icon. It kind of shows orange, but when you click on 030, to me, that looks a little more red than it does orange. Right?
It should show a name as well when you're over it and just look for fiber.
It does, correct. Yeah, so when you click on it, right, or if you hover over it, you can see down here at the bottom, when I hover over, it says tiny, but right below it'll say fiber. Just like if I mouse over here, it says crossover.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Copper straight through, you got it, good. All right, so we're gonna click on the router with that fiber connection selected, or cable selected. We're gonna pick gig 030, we're gonna drag it over to router 2, where we're gonna connect it to gig 030, right? And you can see here that it shows that the interface is down, and that's okay, not a big deal. Now, here's what you're gonna do this time. We're gonna grab a third router, another 2911, and you're gonna bring that third router out here, and you're gonna do the exact same thing we just did on the first two. You're gonna go ahead and power it off. You're gonna add in the SFP module, the HWIC SFP on the outside card slots. You're gonna add the HWIC 2T on the inside card slots. And don't forget to grab the little optic and put it in the square of the 1 gig SFP module. And we're going to change the display name. Whoops. We're going to change the display name to router 3 as well as the host name to router 3. So now you're going to
Question for if you were doing this like physically, like in a lab, would it matter where you placed it? Like, is that an important thing to recall?
Well, it depends. And that's going to be the answer. That's usually the answer to a lot of the technical questions. So it depends. If you wanted to standardize things, right? So that you know on every router you're deploying in your environment where the interfaces are going to be, then yes, it's a very important thing to do to make sure that everything is same, right? As I used to say to my daughter when she was like, no, same, right? So everything is the same. And so then you're going to know what interfaces are going to be available. Because if you think about it, yeah, it does make it look nicer, right? If you organize the way that things are set up, because if you set all three of these up in a different fashion, right, that gets complicated. because you've got one port's connected to a different, if it's not gig 003 or 000, then it's a different number. And so it can get a little bit complicated. So my recommendation is always, if there's a way for you to keep things uniform, right? And that's not always the case, but if there's a way to do it, to do that and make it easier on yourself, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just meant like, I don't know, in general, when you're connecting different things, like if you're inserting something else. Never mind. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you had to put a different card in there for whatever reason, like let's say it wasn't these 4 cards that we just selected and put in here, and this other router needed different cards, then you would just try to keep it as close to this as you could, but ultimately you might have to modify it, right? You might have to modify it. All right, so does everybody have the third router, router 3, out here on their map with those cards in there and powered on?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good deal. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to come back down to the connections, little lightning bolt down here. And we're going to roll over here to this serial DCE. And it's the sort of the red lightning bolt with looks like a clock next to it, right? We're going to click that. And we're going to come up here to router 1. We're going to click on router 1. And this is a serial connection. So watch what happens if I try to click on one of the gigabit Ethernet interfaces. You can see it says the cable can't be connected to that type of a port because it's a different connector. And the same is true if I try to attach it to the fiber port. I click on the fiber port, it says you can't connect it to that port because it's a serial cable. So just like the fiber is only going to work on those fiber ports that we have right now, gig 0, I can't remember, 000, and I think it's 003, these serial cables will only work on the serial ports. And so we're going to pick 020, and we're going to drag it down here to router 3, and we're going to connect it to serial 020, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to get a different connector type here. We're going to come down and we're going to get a copper straight through cable, right? And you can see it's the solid black line. Right next to it is a copper crossover cable, but we're going to grab the straight through. So click on the straight through cable, and we're going to go ahead and highlight this. Now, what if I try to connect the straight through cable to one of the fiber ports? It's going to tell me you can't connect it to that kind of a port because it's an RJ45 connector. And if I try to connect it to a serial port, it's going to say the exact same thing. So we want the Ethernet ports, right? Or these first 3 Ethernet ports, I should say. So I'm going to click on gig 00. And then we're going to drag it up to router 2, and we're going to connect it to gig 00. So we've got this pretty cool little triangle worked out here, right? Where we've got 3 routers. They're all connected to each other. And each of the connection types we've used has been different, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to drag some PCs out here. So down here in the bottom left, and first, everybody with me here? Everybody has this triangle put together here?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So now what we're going to do is the second option on the top row here, you see it says network devices. If I mouse over here, it says in devices, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a PC, and I'll put it right here next to router 3. So let's click on the PC. And you can see the PC opens up and it's got all kinds of stuff going on here. But what we're going to do is we're going to click on the config tab here on the top next to physical. We're going to go to config, and we're going to change it to PC1, or I'm sorry, PCA, right? So we want the display name to say PCA. And then we're going to go ahead and close that down. Now I'm going to drag another PC up here. I'm going to put it next to router 1. And this is going to be PCB. So we'll change the name here from PC1 to PC-B. And then we'll close that window out. And then we're going to grab a laptop. I'm going to put this laptop up here. I'm going to click on the laptop. And we're going to go to the config tab as well. And we're going to change the display name to laptop-C. And then we'll close the tab down, right? So you should have 2 PCs out here and a laptop. Everybody with me? Anybody not with me? All right. So now what we're going to do, and something that you're going to see done in some of the activities that you do, we're going to connect a console cable. So if I go to the lightning bolt down here again, and lightning bolt gives me all my different connectivity type, right? You can see I can scroll over here and look at different connections. But if I mouse over this blue cable right here, that is the console cable. Now you'll hear this also referred to as a rollover cable, or the Cisco blue cable, sometimes people call it. And what it allows me to do is to use an RS-232 port, and on PCs and Macs today, this is typically done with a USB port, right? Or even the Thunderbolt port on a Mac. So we're going to select RS-232, and then you can see we've got like this blue cable now that I can drag around. Once I connected it to the RS-232, we're going to come over to router 1. We're going to click on router 1, and we're going to connect that to the console port. And so then we end up with a little connection that looks like this, right? And now on PC A, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to come down here, pick a console cable, and we're going to come over here to the RS-232 on the PC, and we're going to connect it to router 3's console port. Put some space in between them there. And finally, for the laptop, what happens if I pick the console port and I click the laptop? You can see the laptop actually has an RS-232 connector, right? Or port. So we're going to connect that up to the console port of router 2. So now all 3 of these desktop devices, the laptop and the PCs, have console connections via these rollover cables into each of the routers. And here's what this will allow us to do. We don't have any network connectivity, because let me ask you guys, have we configured any of these interfaces to be up, these Ethernet interfaces and the serial interface? Have we configured any of these to be up with IP addresses on them? And the answer is no, we haven't done any of that. So if I click on the PC, we'll say PCB. If I click on the desktop tab, you can see that the desktop tab has all kinds of stuff going on here, right? Well, because I've got a console cable connected in, you can click on the terminal, and you don't have to change any of these settings here. You want to leave these as their default. So again, you go desktop tab, click on terminal, and then click OK, hit enter a few times. What are we connected to? So we're connected to router 1, right?
Do I hit yes or no?
You can hit no.
Okay.
Yeah, hit if it's asking you to enter yes or no, type in no. All right. So you've got this here, right? So we're on the console for router 1. Let's come over to PC.
Mine's only saying router.
Yeah, so it sounds like if you click on the router and you go to the config tab in the host name area, does it still say router? Or did you change both of those to R1?
I thought I changed them both to R1.
Yeah, that's why it says router. So just change it to R1.
Okay.
And then close the window out. And then when you go back, you should see you're probably at the config prompt, right?
Yes.
Where it says R1 config. All right, so you're good to go then. All right, so on PCA, let's make sure PCA works and allows me to connect to, go to the desktop, right? And then click on the little terminal box, which is the middle box here. And then click OK. Those defaults are going to work, and then hit enter a few times. And you should see that you're on router 3. So you're actually able to configure and control router 3 at this point. Everybody good with router 1 and router 3 and PCA and PCB?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So finally, we're going to click on the laptop because it also has a console connection into router 2. And you can see right here, I'm in router 2, right? And so this is how you can locally connect into routers, right? And on the back of the router, it's typically on the back of the router. Some of the routers, the newer routers, they'll have like a mini USB port on the front that you can use to connect in via console. But typically, there will always be a port on the rear of the router that's blue, just like this cable, that says console, right? And if I was to click on the router and go back to the physical tab, you can kind of see it. It's that port right there. I'll put a little red dot in the middle. And it says, I mean, it's so tiny, it says console, right? I mean, it's really hard to see. But that's the rear of the router. And that's where you would actually plug these blue cables in, right? After you've plugged it into the serial port, or I should say the RS-232 port on the back of the PCs or the laptop, you would then plug it into the router or the back of the router. And so it works out really nicely when you're local to the device, right? All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're done with the topology. So now you're going to come up here and you're going to say File, Save As. And it should open up, whether you're on Windows, Mac, whatever the case may be. You're going to go ahead and put your first name and then your last name and then a dash and then today's date, 01/25/2021. And you're just going to hit enter or save, and you're going to save this file. And so this is the file that you're going to mail to me, right? You're just going to send an email to me using Canvas. And that's another very, very important thing. All of our communication has to take place in Canvas in terms of written communication, has to be in Canvas, right? So this is our topology. Does anybody have any questions about how to get devices onto the canvas, the packet tracer canvas, how to add interfaces, how to change the display name, how to change the host name, how to connect the devices together, and then how to use PCs or laptops to connect a console cable to a device so that you can manage it? Any questions on anything we covered tonight? Everybody's good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Where
And
do we submit this again? I'm sorry.
you're going to send me an email in Canvas. Using Canvas, you're going to email this to me. And this is what, quote unquote, participation is being measured by, right?
We save it as.
Yeah, so I did File, Save As, and then I just typed in my first name, my last name, dash, today's date. And I just put 01/25/2021. And then save it off locally somewhere. And I would, I would highly encourage you, once you get into the activities, right? So chapter 1, Cisco's chapter 1s are always kind of the same thing. It's like it's like herding cats. It's like a million different topics about a million different things, nothing in detail, right? And then you get into chapter 2. Chapter 2 is where you can see that from the syllabus, the packet tracer activities. Chapter 2 is where you're going to start working with the packet tracer activities. So you've saved off this topology, right? You have this. I would recommend revisiting this, opening it back up at some point, maybe after you get done with some of the chapter 2 activities in packet tracer, and you experiment. Bring these interfaces up. Put IP addresses on these interfaces between these routers. Excuse me, do the configuration work through the PC and the terminal on the PC in this window right here, right? Instead of clicking on the router and going to the CLI. Try to do it with the PC using the console connection. And again, these are all things that are going to make you more effective in this course, and especially 131 and 230, if you guys move on to take those, it's going to make you more effective the more sort of, again, I'll do the air quotes, pseudo hands-on, because Packet Tracer it's not hands-on, right? But it's a pretty darn good tool for intro networking. I mean, it is a really, really good tool. So go ahead, save it off. And so let me ask you guys, any questions over anything that I've covered tonight, whether it's syllabus, Netacad, this activity, whatever the case may be. And again, if you don't want to ask now, or you can't think of anything now, or if you think of something later, you can always send me an email and I'll be more than glad to help you out. But again, welcome to the class. I love these classes. I really love what I do. I do this all day. I mean, not this and Packet Tracer, but I do networking all day. I'm not mid-level management. I don't, sit in 4-hour meetings and do that stuff. I'm on the CLI all day. We've got about 400 Cisco devices, a bunch of Juniper devices, Palo Alto devices. And this is what I do, and I love it. And I'm really passionate about it. And hopefully you guys will enjoy it as well. And hopefully the course is structured so that it's enjoyable in terms of, level of stress and trying to get things done and all that. But that's it. If you guys don't have any questions, it's 8 o'clock and I will go ahead and kill the recording here real quickly.
One question. It won't let me save it.
Say again?
It's not letting me save it onto my laptop.
Where are you trying to save it to? Like what folder are you trying to save it in?
It tried to do that for me as well, and I had to take the dashes out of the date and just put in the numbers, and it let me save. So try that. It wouldn't let me use any. Yeah, it wouldn't let me use any dashes or anything.
Well, that's interesting. I've never heard that.
You can't use any / or / but dash should be fine. I saved mine as my name dash whatever.
I'm sorry, I didn't try dashes. I tried forward. Tried the slashes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It doesn't like forward and backslash because it's file hierarchy.
Yeah, just the dash, because the / it's going to think it's exactly a directory separator.
Yeah, that worked. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So let me go ahead, pause or stop the recording here.